Pick 87 going to the Marlins, and Cam Kozeal, shortstop from Arkansas. Scouts have loved his bat-to-ball skills and baseball IQ since he was a Nebraska high schooler.
From Millard South to the major leagues, Cam Kozeal gets the call on the first day of the MLB Draft. Welcome into sports. I'm Mason Kern. After college stops at Vanderbilt and Arkansas, where he played in the 2025 College World Series with the Razorbacks, Kozeal is drafted 87th overall in the third round by the Miami Marlins tonight. MLB.com had the former Patriot ranked 115th on its draft board, meaning the Marlins value him 28 slots higher than the metrics. Two pitchers from the University of Nebraska go in the third round, exactly 4 picks apart from each other. Ty Horn is drafted 94th overall by the Cincinnati Reds, before his Husker bullpen mate Carson Yassa is selected 98th by the Chicago Cubs. The duo helped lead the Huskers to 43 wins and hosting an NCAA regional in Lincoln for the first time since 2008. Alabama shortstop Justin LeBron is a top 20 pick, 18th overall to the Reds. He helped lead the Crimson Tide to the College World Series for the first time since 1999. North Carolina shortstop Jake Schaffner goes 20th to the Boston Red Sox. Quite the journey after winning the Summit League tournament title in Omaha with North Dakota State, playing in the CWS with UNC, and now a top 20 pick. And Georgia catcher Daniel Jackson is the last pick in the first round of the Colorado Rockies. He led the Bulldogs to Omaha for the first time since 2008.